Hello, night traveler. This is Lunas, your dream storyteller from Magical Nights. Wrap yourself in your blanket and let your imagination run wild as we venture into the enchanted paths of magical and fantastic tales. Tonight, we will explore the quiet village of Dun Syanak, where the young warrior Kian dedicated his life to protecting his people. But deep in his heart, he longed to find true love. When a mysterious figure appears and summons him to a journey in the enchanted forest of Tir Na Nog, Kian embarks on a dangerous quest filled with magical creatures and challenges that will test his courage and purity. Ready to dream? In the Green Mountains of Ireland, there was a village called Dun Syanak, where a young warrior named Kian lived. His days were marked by a meticulous routine, intense training on the battlefield, protecting the village from invaders, and long walks through the woods at dusk. Kian was known for his bravery and skill with the sword, but those who knew him closely were aware of a deep loneliness in his eyes. Since childhood, Kian carried the responsibility of protecting his village, a legacy left by his father, a great warrior who perished in battle. The young man dedicated himself tirelessly to this mission, but deep in his heart, there was an unfulfilled desire to find true love and share his life with someone special. One night, after another day of intense training, Kian was sitting by the Enlude Lake, watching the stars reflected in the water. He felt a silent hope as he gazed at the sky, as if waiting for a sign, something that would change the course of his life. He closed his eyes and silently prayed to the goddess of love, Aisling, pleading for her blessing. While Kian was lost in his thoughts, a hooded figure appeared among the trees. It was an elderly druid, known for his wisdom and mystical abilities. The druid approached slowly, his white robes contrasting with the darkness of the night. "Kian, son of Fian, your prayer has been heard," said the druid, with a voice that seemed to echo through time. "The goddess of love, Aisling, has heard your plea. To gain her blessing, you must embark on a dangerous and challenging journey. You must prove your worth and purity of heart." Kian felt a mix of fear and excitement. Finally, an opportunity to change his fate. He stood up and looked firmly into the druid's eyes. "I am ready, elder. Tell me what I must do." The druid smiled slightly and handed Kian a silver amulet with the symbol of Aisling. "This amulet will guide your way. You must go to the enchanted forest of Tir Na Nog, where you will face challenges that will test your courage, loyalty, and love. Only the worthy can receive Aisling's blessing." Kian took the amulet, feeling a comforting warmth in his hands. With a nod, he thanked the druid and set off toward the forest, without looking back. The journey had begun, and the warrior knew that his fate was in the hands of the goddess. At that moment, Kian did not know the dangers and wonders he would encounter in the enchanted forest. His determination and silent hope would be his greatest allies. The village of Dun Syanak lay behind, along with the routine and loneliness that marked his life. Now, he was in search of something greater, something that could fill the void in his heart. The night was calm, and the path ahead was uncertain. But Kian advanced with firm steps, ever closer to discovering the mysteries that the goddess of love had in store for him. The first night in the enchanted forest of Tir Na Nog was challenging for Kian. The dense vegetation and unfamiliar sounds of the forest tested his nerves and determination. He held the silver amulet firmly, feeling its faint glow, as if it was guiding him on the right path. As he walked, Kian came upon a raging river, blocking his way. The current was strong, and crossing seemed impossible. Desperate, he looked around for a way to get across. He found an old rope bridge, swaying precariously over the river. With no other option, he decided to take the risk. As he stepped onto the bridge, he felt it creak under his weight. Carefully, he took slow steps, trying to keep his balance. But when he was almost halfway across, one of the bridge's cables snapped. Kian clung desperately, his hands burning with the effort. He felt frustration grow, but he couldn't give up. With one last effort, he managed to reach the other side, collapsing exhausted on the solid ground. Rising slowly, Kian realized that the journey would be much more difficult than he had imagined. He wiped the sweat from his brow and continued on his way, determined to prove his worth. As he advanced through the forest, he encountered magical creatures, some friendly, others hostile. Kian fought bravely against spectral wolves and avoided treacherous traps. But the greatest test was yet to come. One night, while resting in a moonlit clearing, he was surprised by a group of ghostly warriors. They emerged from the shadows, quickly surrounding him. Their eyes glowed with an intense blue light, and their swords shone in the moonlight. "Who dares to enter Tir Na Nog?" asked the leader of the warriors, a tall and imposing figure. Kian stood up, holding his sword firmly. "I am Kian, son of Fian, and I seek the blessing of the goddess of love, Aisling," he replied with determination. The ghostly warriors exchanged glances before the leader spoke again. "Many have tried and failed. Only those truly pure of heart may pass. Prove your purity, young warrior." Before Kian could respond, the warriors attacked. He fought with all his might, but his opponents were quick and skilled. With each strike, Kian felt his energy waning. He was about to succumb to despair when he remembered the druid's words, "Only the worthy can receive Aisling's blessing." With renewed determination, Kian found strength within himself. He stopped fighting aggressively and began to defend himself with more strategy, focusing on dodging attacks rather than counterattacking. Over time, the ghostly warriors began to disappear one by one until only the leader remained. The leader lowered his sword and smiled. "You have proven yourself worthy, Kian. Proceed. Your next test awaits." Kian, still panting, thanked him and continued on his way. He knew that the journey was far from over, but his determination was unwavering. The forest seemed darker, and he felt that something grand was about to happen. At dawn, Kian found an old temple covered in vines and moss. In the center of the temple was a statue of the goddess Aisling with an inscription that read, "The true test is one of love and sacrifice." Suddenly, a soft and melodic voice echoed through the temple. "Kian, son of Fian, are you ready to face the true test?" asked the voice. Kian felt a shiver down his spine but replied firmly, "Yes, I am ready." The statue of the goddess Aisling glowed intensely, and the temple began to tremble. Kian closed his eyes, prepared for what was to come. He knew that the true test was just beginning and that his heart and courage would be tested to the limit. Kian felt the ground tremble beneath his feet as the light from the statue of the goddess Aisling grew in intensity. He opened his eyes and saw a secret door open in the temple wall, revealing a dark and mysterious corridor. Without hesitation, he followed the newly revealed path, determined to face the final test. The corridor led Kian to a cave illuminated by glowing crystals on the walls. In the center of the cave was a pedestal with an ancient book and a silver rose beside it. As he approached, he heard the soft and melodic voice of the goddess once more. "Kian, to prove your true love and receive my blessing, you must solve the riddle in the book. This riddle will test your heart and mind." Kian picked up the book and read the riddle aloud. "To attain true love, one must sacrifice what is most precious. What are you willing to give, young warrior?" He pondered deeply over the question. What could he sacrifice that would show the purity of his heart? As he thought, the voice of the goddess spoke again, this time closer and more comforting. "Kian, true love requires sacrifice and courage. The answer lies within you. Listen to your heart." The warrior closed his eyes and let his thoughts wander. He thought of his life, the battles, the lonely nights, and the hope he always carried in his heart. Finally, he opened his eyes and held the silver rose, feeling a warm sensation flow through his body. I am willing to sacrifice my desire for power and glory, for none of it matters without true love. I want to be worthy of your blessing, Aisling." As soon as Kian finished speaking, the cave began to glow intensely. The silver rose transformed into pure light and enveloped the warrior, filling him with a sense of peace and renewed hope. Suddenly, the light faded, and the cave returned to normal. Kian looked around, confused, until he noticed that the book had disappeared and, in its place, was a golden key. He took the key and, not knowing what to expect, returned through the corridor to the temple. Upon his return, he saw that the statue of the goddess Aisling was now alive, a radiant and ethereal figure before him. She smiled gently. "Kian, your answer has shown the purity of your heart. The key you hold will open the door to the kingdom of Tir Na Nog, where you will find your destiny." Before Kian could thank her, the goddess disappeared in a flash of light. He looked at the golden key in his hands and, with renewed hope and curiosity, set off towards the golden gate that had appeared in the temple. Crossing the gate, Kian was transported to a breathtaking valley where time seemed to stand still. Lush trees and colorful flowers filled the air with sweet fragrances. In the center of the valley, he saw a shining crystal castle. With determined steps, he walked towards the castle, feeling that each step brought him closer to his destiny. Inside the castle, Kian found a grand hall with stained glass windows reflecting multicolored lights. In the center of the hall was an empty throne, flanked by two figures, an imposing warrior and a woman of unparalleled beauty, with eyes that seemed to hold all the love in the world. "Welcome, Kian," said the warrior, his voice resonating with power. "I am Love, guardian of Tir Na Nog. This is Aisling, the goddess of love." Kian bowed before them, his heart pounding. "Kian, you have shown courage and purity of heart," said Aisling with a loving smile. "But there is still one truth you must know. Your journey is not just for you. An ancient prophecy foretells that a warrior would come seeking my blessing to save his people from impending darkness." The warrior looked at her, surprised. "Save my people? How can I do that?" Aisling approached and lightly touched his forehead. "Through true love and sacrifice, Kian. Love is the most powerful force of all. To save your people, you must return to your village and face the greatest challenge of all, uniting everyone with the power of love and compassion." Kian felt a weight on his shoulders, but also a renewed sense of purpose. He nodded, ready to accept his destiny. "I am ready, Aisling. With your blessing, I will face any challenge." With the goddess's blessing and renewed courage, Kian left the magical valley, returning to his village determined to fulfill the prophecy and bring light and love to his people. Kian returned to his village, Dun Syanak, with a new purpose and the blessing of the goddess Aisling. The goddess's words echoed in his mind, through true love and sacrifice. He knew that his challenge would not be easy, but he was determined to save his people from the impending darkness. Upon arrival, he found the village in a state of despair. A mysterious plague had spread, affecting crops and leaving many ill. The villagers, once resilient, were now gripped by fear and distrust. Kian's heart ached to see his friends and neighbors suffering. Gathering the village leaders, he shared the wisdom he had gained during his journey. He spoke about the importance of unity, compassion, and sacrifice. But it was not easy to convince everyone. Distrust was deeply rooted, and many doubted that love could be the solution to their problems. It was then that Kian decided to lead by example. He offered his own home and provisions to help the most in need and began caring for the sick personally, unafraid of contracting the disease. His courage and dedication began to inspire others. Gradually, the villagers started working together again, sharing resources and caring for one another. Amid these efforts, Kian met a young woman named Iba, a healer who also devoted her efforts to helping the sick. Together, They began searching for solutions to the plague, experimenting with herbs and medicinal potions. During this time, Kian and Iba developed a deep respect and admiration for each other, which soon blossomed into something more. One night, while Kian and Iba were in their makeshift laboratory preparing more remedies, Iba stopped and looked at him with shining eyes. "Kian, I believe the force guiding us is love," she said, holding his hand. "It is what gives us the courage to face any adversity. I am by your side, not just as a healer, but as someone who loves you." Kian felt a wave of warmth and gratitude flood his heart. He held Iba's hand firmly and replied, "Iba, I love you too. And with this love, we can face any challenge." The next day, armed with new determination and a promising cure, Kian and Iba went to the village square. There, in front of everyone, they shared the healing potion they had developed. The initial results were encouraging. The sick began to show signs of improvement, and hope once again shone in the villagers' eyes. But the true transformation occurred when Kian, with Iba's help, organized a large community event. A celebration of life, unity, and renewed hope. All the villagers were invited to participate, bringing food and stories to share. That night, under the starlight, Kian stood on an improvised stage in the center of the square. "My friends, today we celebrate not only our village's recovery but also the power of love and unity. I have learned that true strength lies not in brute force but in our ability to care for one another and sacrifice for the common good." The villagers, touched by Kian's words, applauded and cheered in support. It was a night of joy and relief, where distrust was replaced by gratitude and love. Kian looked at Iba, who was smiling at him from the crowd, and felt that his journey was nearing completion. But amid the celebrations, a familiar figure appeared. It was the druid who had initiated his journey. He approached Kian and Iba with a serene smile. "Kian, son of Fian, you have completed your mission with honor. The goddess Aisling is proud of you. But there is one last revelation." Kian and Iba exchanged curious and slightly apprehensive glances. "The true blessing of the goddess is not just for you but for the entire village. From this day forward, Dun Syanak will be blessed with prosperity and peace, as long as the bonds of love and unity continue to be nurtured." With these words, the druid vanished like mist in the wind, leaving Kian and Iba with the certainty that their journey was only beginning, but that the future would be bright and filled with love. Kian looked around, seeing the happy and grateful faces of the villagers. He felt a deep peace in his heart. The journey had been long and difficult, but now he knew that love was the true force that moved the world. And with Iba by his side, he was ready to face any challenge the future might bring. The days that followed the great celebration were marked by renewed peace in Dun Syanak. The villagers worked together, the sick recovered, and the crops began to thrive again. Kian and Iba dedicated themselves to strengthening community ties, promoting gatherings and activities that encouraged unity and cooperation. One morning, as Kian and Iba walked through the flourishing fields, they noticed something strange on the horizon. A tall, imposing figure was approaching the village, dressed in shining armor. As the figure drew closer, Kian recognized the familiar face of Luff, the guardian of Tir Na Nog. Luff stopped before them, his expression serious. "Kian, Iba, I bring an urgent message from the goddess Aisling," said Luff, his voice heavy with gravity. "Though your village is now at peace, a greater threat is approaching. An ancient darkness is awakening, and only those who possess the true blessing of the goddess can face it." Kian felt a chill run down his spine. He thought his journey had come to an end, but now he realized that there were still challenges ahead. "What must we do?" Luff asked Kian, determined to protect his people. "You must travel to the sacred mountain of Slivanamen, where the essence of darkness resides. There, you will find the heart of the goddess, a jewel that possesses the power to banish the darkness forever." But know that this journey will be dangerous and require great sacrifices. Kian and Iba exchanged looks, both aware of the risks but determined to complete their mission. They said goodbye to their friends and family in the village, promising to return soon. With love leading the way, they began the long and arduous journey to Slievenammen. The path to the mountain was treacherous, filled with steep cliffs and dark forests. However, Luff's presence and the strength of the love they shared gave Kian and Iba the courage needed to press on. During the journey, they faced various trials, fierce storms, mystical creatures, and physical challenges that tested their limits. Finally, after days of travel, they reached the base of Slievenammen. The mountain rose majestically and intimidatingly, its slopes covered by thick mist. Nevertheless, Kian and Iba's determination did not waver. They began the ascent, each step more difficult than the last. Along the way, they found an ancient sanctuary where they stopped to rest. While exploring the place, they found an inscription on a stone: "Those who seek the heart of the goddess must offer the purest of sacrifices." Kian felt a pang of fear. He knew that the journey so far had required sacrifices, but now he understood that something greater was needed. Looking at Iba, he realized that the true sacrifice must come from the deepest love. "Iba, you are my heart and my strength. I cannot ask you to sacrifice something so precious, but I know that together we can face anything." Iba smiled, her eyes shining with love and determination. "Kian, our love has brought us this far. Let's face this together, whatever the sacrifice may be." With one last embrace, they proceeded to the top of the mountain, where they found a cave guarded by a gigantic creature, a dragon with scales that glimmered like the starry night. The dragon observed them with penetrating eyes, its breath exuding heat and power. "Who dares seek the heart of the goddess?" roared the dragon, its voice echoing through the mountain. Kian stepped forward, holding Iba's hand. "We are Kian and Iba. We come in the name of love and the goddess Aisling to banish the darkness and bring peace to our land." The dragon tilted its head, as if pondering their words. Then, with a majestic movement, it opened the passage to the cave. "Prove yourselves worthy. Only those of pure heart may touch the heart of the goddess." Inside the cave, in the center of a room illuminated by crystals, was the most beautiful jewel they had ever seen, the heart of the goddess, pulsating with a soft, comforting light. Kian and Iba advanced slowly, feeling the powerful energy of the jewel. As they approached, Kian felt a sharp pain in his chest and fell to his knees. Iba rushed to him, holding him in desperation. "Kian, what's happening?" she cried, tears streaming down her face. Kian looked at her, his eyes filled with love and sadness. "It's the sacrifice, Iba. My love for you and our people is true. To save everyone, I must give my life." Before Iba could respond, the light of the heart of the goddess enveloped Kian, and he disappeared, leaving behind only an ethereal glow. The jewel, now in Iba's hands, pulsated with even stronger energy. With a heavy heart but full of determination, Iba held the jewel and pronounced the words of power that echoed in her mind. A wave of luminous energy spread through the mountain, banishing the darkness and bringing peace and prosperity back to the land. Iba descended the mountain with the heart of the goddess in her hands, knowing that Kian's sacrifice would not be in vain. Upon returning to the village, she was greeted with joy and gratitude by the villagers. The darkness had been banished, and peace reigned once again. However, in her heart, Iba carried the loss of Kian. But she knew that his love would live forever, guiding and protecting her. And so, with tears of relief and gratitude, she promised to honor Kian's sacrifice by living a life of love and compassion as he had wished. Kian had not disappeared completely. He was now part of the very essence of the land, a silent guardian who would watch over his people and his eternal love, Iba. And whenever she looked at the stars, she would know that he was there, shining with the strength of true love. Years passed, and Dun Syanak flourished under the protection of the heart of the goddess and Iba's inspiring leadership. The village became a symbol of unity and love, attracting visitors from distant lands who came to learn from their example. The villagers, now prosperous and united, never forgot Kian's sacrifice, the warrior whose love brought light to all. Iba dedicated her life to caring for the people and teaching the values of love and compassion. Every night, she would sit by the Enlube Lake, where Kian used to gaze at the stars and feel his presence beside her. She knew he continued to protect the village as a guardian spirit. Life went on peacefully, but Iba always carried a silent sadness in her heart. She missed Kian but knew he had given his life for a greater good. And it was on one of those nights, while admiring the star's reflection in the lake, that something extraordinary happened. The lake's surface began to glow intensely, and an ethereal figure emerged from the water. It was Kian, enveloped in a soft, comforting light. Iba felt her heart race and tears of joy filled her eyes. "Kian," she murmured, incredulous. "Iba, my love," he replied, his voice soft as the night breeze. "The goddess Aisling has granted me this moment so we can say goodbye properly." She ran to him, and despite his ethereal form, she felt the warmth and love emanating from Kian. They embraced, and the world around them seemed to disappear, leaving only the two of them in a moment of pure connection. "I have so much to tell you, Kian," said Iba, through her tears. "But above all, I want to thank you for everything. Your sacrifice brought peace to our people and gave me the strength to go on. And I am eternally grateful to you," Iba replied Kian, holding her face tenderly. "Your love and courage gave me the peace I sought. Now, I can rest knowing the village is in good hands." They spent what felt like hours talking, sharing memories and reaffirming their eternal love. When the time came to say goodbye, Kian held Iba's hands and looked deeply into her eyes. "Iba, you will never be alone. I will always be with you, in your heart and in every star in the sky. Live a full life, my love, and continue spreading the light of love and compassion." With a final embrace and a kiss full of love, Kian began to dissipate, his light blending with the star's glow. Iba stood there, looking at the sky, feeling a deep peace in her heart. She knew that although Kian was not physically present, his spirit would live on forever. The next morning, Iba shared her experience with the villagers, who were moved and inspired by Kian's visit. The story of his sacrifice and true love became a legend, passed down from generation to generation, teaching the values of unity, courage, and compassion. Dun Syanak continued to thrive, and Iba led with wisdom and love. The heart of the goddess remained a symbol of hope, ensuring that darkness would never return. The village became a place of learning and welcome, where all were invited and could find peace and renewal. Iba lived many years, always remembering Kian with love and gratitude. She became a respected matriarch, and her legacy of love and compassion was felt by all around her. In her final words, she reminded everyone of the importance of sacrifice and the strength of true love. On her deathbed, surrounded by her loved ones, Iba whispered, "Always remember that love is our greatest strength. It is what unites us and gives us the courage to face any adversity. Kian will always be with us, in our hearts and in every star that shines in the sky." With these words, she closed her eyes and departed serenely, knowing that her legacy would live on through the generations. The villagers built a monument in honor of Kian and Iba, an eternal symbol of the power of true love and sacrifice. The legend of Kian and Iba spread throughout Ireland and beyond, inspiring stories and songs that celebrated their courage and devotion. Dun Syanak prospered as a united community, where love and compassion were the most sacred values. And whenever someone looked at the stars, they would remember the story of the warrior and the goddess, an eternal reminder that true love has the power to transform the world. Good night and enchanted dreams.